Welcome to Python Pro, a 30-day workshop by CTC. And today on day 9, we'll be looking on how to convert the loops, say from for loop to while loop and while loop to for loop. And we'll also be looking at the break, pass, and continue keywords which are used to control the flow of loops. So moving on to converting loops, if you're wondering why are we converting loops, it is basically that if you know the number of iterations that you want, it is easier and a much more efficient way. You can convert the loop into a better looking, easy understandable, and an efficient code if you're converting the loops. So taking an example of while loop over here, say we have an example of printing tables using while loop, where I've just declared my the numbers I want, and then I've given my the iterator that starts from here, and the terminating condition goes inside the while condition, and the code basically follows here. The logic that we want to do is nothing but to print. And now let us try to convert this while loop into a for loop. So using the range function that we know, that we use to iterate through a sequence of number, here it is very easy to calculate the range because I starts from 1 and we have to print till 10, which means it goes from 1 to 11 because it moves till n plus 1 and n plus 1 fails, like n plus 1 is not included in the range. And we have the same output here. This code looks small and simple, so we may not be able to look how efficient it turns out in converting a while loop to a for loop in this scenario, but we'll be looking at another example where you will be able to visually see that how a code looks better when you convert it from a while loop to a for loop. You can also convert a for loop to a while loop, but it is when you are not sure of how many iterations you might need, say in prior, and when the loop's conditions are more complex and it is not very easy to express them using, like, say, a simple range like this or any sequence that you have. So that is when you convert a for loop to a while loop. Moving on to our control flow statements, we have three control flow statements called as continue, pass, and break. Continue is used to, say, skip a particular block of code inside the loop and you just move on to the next iteration. Based on the condition that you give inside the statement, say I have some if statement, and say the next set of part I don't want to continue for this iteration, or say some even number, some odd number iterations, I can use this continue statement and just skip the particular block of code. And pass over here, it has nothing to do, it just acts as a placeholder. It does literally nothing. Pass is just like saying you can pass, like done. There is nothing. It is just simply to say that your say your flow can go despite whatever the result is from the conditional statement or any other, say, conditional statement. Whatsoever the result you might get, you can just move on with the rest of the code. And break over here, it is used to exit the loop directly. Say if you want to break the loop even before the termination condition is reached, you can use this break statement and exit the code, exit the loop. We'll see the examples right away. So here we have a small example for the control flow statements. I've used the comment block and I've made a short description of what are these control flow statements mean. Say continues to skip the code, and then pass does not do anything, access a placeholder, and break terminates a loop. So here I have a list of numbers, and I'm using a for loop to iterate through this list, and I'm checking if the given value, say, is odd. If it is odd, I'm going to continue, and then I have a print statement over here. Let us see how this continue works. So I have also commented that this is going to skip odd numbers and we are just only going to print even numbers. Let us see how this works. So as you can see, it only prints the even numbers, because whenever it encounters an odd, this statement just says continue, and then the rest of the code block in this loop is skipped and it moves on to the next iteration. The next iteration we have the even numbers. Say each time I encounter an odd number, this is going to skip the rest of the part and move on to the next iteration, which has the even numbers. So I only print even numbers. So what if I replace this continue with a pass? Here I have an example for the same. So what if I replace the continue with a pass? Let us see how this works. So over here, if you look, when I give pass, it does nothing and it just moves to the rest of the statement. It doesn't mind if the condition is true or false. It just this if condition, whatsoever the result is, it is going to move on and print. So that is the difference between using continue and using pass. So let us move on and see how break works in a loop. So I have taken a while loop over here, and say I have some variable called the counter and it is less than 10. So each time I'm going to print this, and this counter is going to reach, say break. This loop is going to break when the counter reaches 5. Let us also try this one out. So when counter is initialized to 0, it moves on, prints the counter. It starts from 0, so it gives 0 here, and then increments the counter by 1, checks if the counter is equal to 5, so it is not right now, moves on, prints it, increments, checks, and this goes on and on and on till we have 5 equal to 5 and this loop breaks. Even though the loop is till 10, say the counter has to run till it is equal to 10, and then only it should terminate. But here we have our break statement that says I want to break this loop when it just encounters 5. So this is the usage of continue, pass and break. Let us see some more examples of how this can be implemented. I've taken the same fizzbuzz problem that we solved, uh, say, but this time we're using the loops, using for loop. So I want to break this loop when it reaches 15, even though the range is going to go from 1 to 21. I'm breaking the loop when it reaches 15. So the first condition, as we know, if the number is divisible by 3 and 5, we print fizz bus. If the number is divisible by 3, we print fizz. Divisible by 5, we print bus. And if none of the above conditions are satisfied, we are going to print num. And each if statement, in the first if statement I used break to break the loop when the number is more than 15. And here I've used continue because once this is encountered, I don't want the rest of the block to be executed. So when I encounter this continue, it moves on to the next iteration. Similarly, in each if, it does the same. And over here, just to show the usage of pass does nothing. So we will see how this loop runs. So over here we have our, say, our first number goes like 1, so we directly go to the print of num. It does till 2 and then the 3 where fizz is printed. While fizz gets printed, this when it encounters this continue, it ignores the rest of the code statement mentioned below in the loop, and it moves on to the next iteration. So we have 4 over here. Similarly, we have bus, fizz, and then once it encounters 15, when it reaches 15 and it moves on to the next iteration, say we have the continue, num is greater than 15. Now num becomes 16 and it encounters the break statement. This loop breaks and I have a print statement outside this loop to ensure or signify that the loop is completed. So this print statement works only when the loop is finished. So using break statement we have come out of the loop and this print statement is executed. Let us see how we convert this for loop into a while loop. Now let us see how a for loop gets converted to a while loop. On the left hand side I have my for loop fizz bus using for loop, and on my right hand side I have my fizz bus using while loop. So as you can see in my for loop, my say all of the incrementation and the termination condition all are already predefined inside a given sequence. Whereas in my while loop, I have to initialize it before and then I have to increment it each time. Let us see how this while loop runs. So while loop has the termination condition as number should be less than or equal to 20. The same over here. The range starts from 1 to 20. 21 is ignored in the for loop because when 21 less than 21 is encountered, the loop breaks. So it runs till 20 in the for loop, and the similar condition statement, say the termination condition, is being interpreted here as number less than or equal to 20. So on the next we have the same if statement that breaks the loop when number is more than 15, and then we have the same divisibility check where if the number is divisible by 3 and 5 we print fizz bus, but here we increment and then use continue. And similarly at each of the if statement we increment it and then we continue. Even at the last we have to increment the counter and then only the loop works. So let us see how this loop runs. So this loop also returns the same set of values. So it prints 1 because none of the above conditions are true. It is not divisible by 3 or 5, so it prints the number directly, and it increments the number at the end, and again it moves to 2 and it prints the number. When it encounters 3, 3 is divisible, so it prints fizz, again increments, and then it moves on to the continuous statement where the rest of the code block is ignored. And similarly we move, and when it encounters 16 is greater than 15 and now the loop breaks. So as you can see how different a for loop and a while loop looks for the same code, you can literally see how tedious and how easy to make an error it is in while loop. So each time you have to increment, each time you have to make sure you increment the counter. Like the code looks lengthier and it looks more messier in while loop than in for loop, but in for loop the code looks concise and there is no much hassle in there while you have to, in the basis of say the incrementer or the termination condition, any of those. This holds true only when you are aware of how many iterations you require. Over here, it was only 20. Even if I'm getting any number of iterations from the user, it is going to be easy for me to use a for loop. Whereas, say, if your condition is more complex, you don't know where to stop, you can use while loop. Only in a situation where you literally don't know how many iterations, not literally, but then it is very tough to make the number of iteration as a sequence or a range. So that is where you go for a while loop, else for loop holds good. So let us see some other examples. So in this question where we have a tech startup, each employee at the tech startup is given an employee ID with unique positive integer. One warm Sunday evening, 5 employees of company come together for a meeting and sit on a circular table. Employees follow strange convention. They will continue the meeting only if the following condition is satisfied. The sum of employee IDs of every pair of adjacent employees at the table must be even. They are so lazy, they won't move around to satisfy the above condition. If the current seating plan doesn't satisfy the condition, the meeting will be cancelled. You're given employee ID of all 5 employees. Your task is to decide if the meeting happened or not. The input will be 5 line, each line containing integer. The ith line will have the employee ID. Output will be a single line containing one of these two strings, yes or no. So the basic idea over here is that this uh, this seating arrangement is of a circular thing, and you have to make sure that each adjacent person, the sum of their employee ID should be even. This holds true only when, say, it goes like 1, 3, and it is unique, so you cannot repeat it either. So if it is going to be 1 and 3, this condition satisfies. Say employee 1 is 1 and employee 2 is 3. So this condition satisfies, their adjacent is going to give 4. And say this, he has 5 over here. And now I cannot put another 3 over here to make this even. Say I put another 7 over here. And now to make this condition satisfy, you need to guess another number. So this holds true only if you are going to think and give a proper say input. Not just 5, it can be for any number of seating arrangements. So let us see how we can solve this question. Taking an easy input, say if you're taking all the numbers as even, say I have 2, 4, 6, 8 and 10. It is going to be simple. All of my sum is going to return an even number. And if it is going to be odd, you have to make sure that the sum gives a proper result. So even before going into the logic, say every adjacent pair should return a even value, right? So for the basic starting, we'll just check if the first two values are returning me true or false. If the first two values, say this is 1 and this is say 4, this returns me 5, I'm going to straight away say that the meeting is not going to happen because I have one odd number, which itself says that it is false. There's no need to even check the rest of the conditions. So if this is going to be in the center, then we have to check. Keeping this on mind, let us move on to our program. So in this scenario where our first employee ID is going to be 1, second employee ID is going to be 3, third is going to be 9, and fourth is going to be 7, and fifth is going to be 5. Now checking if the sum is going to return, say, even number, it is going to give me 4 over here, and this adjacent pair is going to give me 12, and this adjacent pair gives me 16, and this adjacent pair is still going to return me 12, and this adjacent pair gives me 16, 6. So if this flow goes on despite being odd number, then the condition is satisfied, else it is not. So for this question, I have an empty list called the employee ID where I'm going to get the inputs from user and store those employee IDs inside the list. And then I'm getting the number of say employees who are going to participate in the meeting. And then I'm getting the employee ID using the append function, the list.append, and then I'm getting it as an integer. So I've used int function before the input, and therefore over here, if I want to mention any of those, say, variable inside a string, that in a print statement you can use this f string, which helps you to print the variable number in the screen, output screen. So finally I'm printing my whole list that I that I have got from the user. And flag is nothing but something that you use to check uh, if if the uh, if the if the loop has been executed or not, if the condition statement has been encountered or not. So I'm declaring this flag as true in the beginning, and I'm using while loop here. So I have declared and initialized my iterator as 0, and then my while loop condition runs till I less than n. So this is my termination condition. I have yet another variable that calculates the sum. This sum is nothing but the adjacent to employee IDs, the sum of adjacent to employee IDs. If you're wondering why I have given the I plus 1 mod n over here, this is nothing but to calculate this circular index. So it is used to ensure that the index remains within the bound of an array or a sequence. So say the index value is from I to n, so 0 to n, we are making sure that it remains within the range of 0 to n. It does not cross more than n. Say this is also used to make sure you want to say come back to the beginning or come back to the end, say in a loop or a circle. You can use this circular indexing. This is also called as modular indexing. So taking an example, I have a list of length n. Similar to here, I have an n list, and I mod n as an index, it ensures that I stays within the valid range of indices. So say I mod n is within say I have some big value that comes as I plus 1 or I. So I mod n returns me the remainder, which brings me back to the indices that I have. So I have highlighted my index values over here. Say my index starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have a list containing 5 values that starts from 0 to 4. Say I have 4. Which values goes like 1, 3, 9, 7 and 5. And my indexes are like 0, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Say if I want to check if the last index and this starting index are they are seated adjacently, since this table is a circular table. So how do I check if these both are giving me a proper sum or not? So if I'm directly going to give say I and I plus 1 as my logic, if I'm going to check I and I plus 1 are going to return me or true or not, this is going to return me that index is out of range. This is going to return me an error that is going to say that your index is out of range because I is going to be 4 and 4 plus 1 index is going to be 5. So there is no such index called 5 over here, so index is moving out of our range. So to overcome this error, we have this circular indexing where you're going to add your index, say same I plus 1 index, but you're going to do this mod n, which is going to return us say the integer uh, remainder of this say I plus 1, which is going to give us the circular indexing. So this whole part 4 plus 1 is going to be say 5, 5 mod 5 is going to give me 0. So this says that go to the 0th index that is near you. So 4 plus the 0th index, the 4th index and the 0th index. So if you're going to do the same, like my I is going to be 5 right now and I plus 1 is going to be 6. So 6 mod 5 is going to return me 1, which is going to say my first index, and so on and so on and so on. So your I might increment to anything, but when you do this mod n, it is going to return you the same index values that you have within your range. So this is why we use circular indexing method. So now that you've understood what circular indexing means, we are using the concept over here, the circular index, and we are storing the adjacent element, the sum of adjacent elements of the list in this variable called esum, which simply refers to the employee ID sum. And I'm going to check if this sum is divisible by 2 or not. If this sum is divisible by 2, then it will not enter this block of statement. Else, if the sum is not divisible by 2, I'm going to initialize my flag as false, and then I'm going to break this loop. Because even if one pair of say adjacent employee ID is going to return me an odd number, then the meeting is not going to happen as per our requirement and conditions. And in the else block I have my incrementation, and I've used pass just to signify how pass works. Pass does nothing. Pass just lets you go through the statement whatsoever your result is. And then at the end, out of this while loop, I'm checking if the flag is true or false. So if flag is true, it is going to print yes. If this statement fails, it is going to print no. So let us check if this code works. So I'm going to give my number of employees as 5. Say the previous thing we had, the odd number, the 1, 3, and then we had 9, and then 7, and then 5. Let us see if this if this sequence of numbers is giving me true. Yes. So the adjacent numbers are returning me a sum of even. So this code works. Let us see if the even number list works or not. Again, so enter the number. I'm going to give the same 5. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. And again this code works. If what if I'm going to give consecutive odd numbers or a mix of odd and even numbers. So now I'm going to enter say consecutive number of odd and even, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it is giving me the answer is no, because this sum is not going to return me an even number. Similarly, the sum is not going to return me any of these sums going to return me except a very few. Let us see another example and another interesting example. So here we have an interesting say guessing game here. We are going to guess a number between 1 to 20, and within 5 attempts we have to guess the number, else it is going to give us, say, your attempts are crossed, say the number of attempts, maximum attempts is crossed, and it prints our actual number. So how do I write this game? Using the random library, as we studied what are the libraries and what are the frameworks. And this random library is going to help us get some random values. So within, say we have more functions like randint, random, and then choice, shuffle, sample, and then a lot of other functions that help us get a random value generated by itself. So one of those functions that we use here is called as the randint. It is going to generate a random integer within the specified range, starting range and the where it is supposed to end. So I'm storing that number in a variable called secret number. Moving on, we have our attempts that I want to mention. Say the number of attempts, maximum attempts is going to be 5, and my attempt starts from 0. So while my attempt is less than maximum attempt, which means it is going from 0 to 5, and 5 is being excluded at the end. So it goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4, which gives us 5 attempts. Well, this is going to be my whole outer loop, and now I'm going to get my input from the user for each attempt. I'm going to check for the each attempt. So for each attempt, I'm going to get an input. I'm going to check if the number is is equal to the digit. If it is less than the digit, if it is greater than the digit, I'm going to give a lot of combinations over here. So using isDigit function that we used for the password checking, this is going to check if the input that the user has passed is a digit or not. If he hasn't passed any digit, I'm going to convert the digit into an integer and then use the same. So this is going to be my outermost condition, this if. And inside I'm checking if the number that the user has entered is within the range 1 and 20, inclusive of 1 and 20. And now I'm checking if the number guessed by the user is equal to the secret number. Is the number same as the secret number? If so, I'm printing congratulations, you have guessed the correct number. If it is less than the secret number, too low or too high, or please enter a number between 1 and 20. Else, if any of the above conditions are not true, or all of the conditions are false, I'm going to say print invalid input. And again, once these conditions are done, say the first attempt is over, now I'm going to increment to the second attempt. This is going to go till, as I said, 5 less than 5 condition is reached. Attempts become 5, and 5 less than 5 gives us false. And now we have that you have reached your maximum attempts. Let us see if this code works. So this code is an example where you can see you're using the else statement with the while loop. So you're going to check if the while is returning true, and if it's going to return, the loop is going to run. And if this while statement reaches a false, it moves on to the else part, and the code that lies within the else is also getting executed. So from this example, else is not just confined with the if statements, it can also be used with the looping statements also. So it is not just mandatory that you always use if along with else. You can also use it with while loop and for loops and etc. You can also, you've seen a better example over here. Let us see if this code works. Say I have my welcome to the number guessing game between 1 and 20. Say I'm going to give some 16. This number is too high, I'm going to try again. Say I give some 10 now. Too low, it's giving me too low. So say the number is between 16 and 10. So I'm going to give some 14. Seems 14 is the correct number. So I hope you guys also enjoy this program and meet you on day 10.